Can a simple mix-up between two track lines ruin a seven-time world champion's entire weekend? In Maranello, the engineers had worked meticulously on the specific setup for Las Vegas. The circuit, with its long straights and aggressive braking, required medium-low downforce, a balance that Ferrari had intensively simulated. The first sector was its strong point. The SF25 was agile, with good traction in slow corners, and surprisingly stable in the load transfer areas, something that had been its Achilles heel in previous events. In comparison, Leclerc set the third fastest time in FP2 on medium tires, indicating an even greater margin on soft tires. Internally, the telemetry data was encouraging. Saturday in Las Vegas was one of those days that remain etched in the history of Formula One, not because of what was won, but because of what was lost. Everything that Ferrari had built during Friday fell apart in less than 20 minutes. The curtain fell suddenly on what promised to be a competitive resurgence for Lewis Hamilton and the Scuderia. And what remained was the echo of a question that no one expected to ask again. How is it possible for a driver of Hamilton's caliber, with almost 2 decades of experience and 7 world titles, to qualify last for pure pace? The rain appeared as an uninvited actor and completely changed the script. The drops that began to fall before qualifying transformed the asphalt of the Las Vegas street circuit into a surface of black ice. Grip disappeared, confidence evaporated, and any previous simulation was obsolete in a matter of minutes. The SF25, designed to work within a very specific temperature window, simply failed to activate the intermediate tires. This structural weakness of the car, widely known to engineers, became painfully evident. And in Formula One, when the tires are not up to temperature, not even the best driver in the world can do magic. Hamilton tried everything. First with intermediates, then with extreme rain tires. But nothing worked. The car skidded, understeered at corner entry, stalled under braking, and lacked traction. The British driver described the experience as fighting a car that doesn't want to turn or brake. Added to this was a potential technical problem. One of the front brakes seemed to be crystallized, that is, unable to generate adequate friction. The result, an uncontrollable car in already critical conditions. And then the unthinkable happened. On his final fastest lap attempt, Hamilton hit a signal cone at turn 14. The object became trapped beneath the SF25, altering the airflow to the diffuser and completely destabilizing the car's aerodynamic balance. What followed was a dirty lap with no references, no grip, and no real option for improvement. But the tragic climax was not technical. It was human. As Hamilton crossed the final sector, he radioed to ask his engineer Riccardo Adami if he still had time to complete a lap. Adami responded with, "Keep pushing." It was a direct order. But when Hamilton saw red lights on the gantry above the straight, he assumed the session was over. He raised his foot. Aborted. End of the attempt. What I did not know, and which would later cause controversy among experts, is that the Las Vegas circuit has an unconventional configuration. The timing line does not coincide with the start/finish line. It is a rarity that very few circuits on the calendar share. And although the timesheets confirmed that Hamilton had crossed that line with a second to spare, he had time to start a new lap. It was already too late. The decision was made. There was no turning back. This was the breaking point, not only because of the grille space, but because of what it symbolically represented. The total vulnerability of a champion in the midst of a storm of imprecise decisions, technical failures, and a team that still does not communicate with him with the surgical precision that a title contender requires. Ferrari, suddenly, no longer seemed like the destination of redemption for Hamilton. It was an invisible trap. And that Saturday afternoon in Nevada, it closed in on him mercilessly. When the lights came on at the 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix on Sunday, all the focus was on one driver, Lewis Hamilton, the last one on the grill. The 7-time world champion who had qualified in the lowest position of his entire career. The pilot who had to offer a spectacle of redemption. Social networks were boiling. The narrative was served, Hamilton goes for the epic. But Formula One does not obey narratives. And Las Vegas was the best example of this. The race began with more stable conditions. Dry asphalt, relatively low temperature, and no threat of rain. Hamilton, knowing he had no room for error, opted for a conservative strategy. Ferrari put it on medium tires with the intention of maximizing tire life in the first stint and taking advantage of any early incidents that would allow it to advance with one less stop or under a safety car. The first meters were clean. Hamilton managed to avoid the usual chaos at the back of the grid and gained a couple of positions immediately. But it soon became clear that he had neither the pace nor the car to make an aggressive comeback. Each position cost laps. Each overtake had to be cooked during several sectors. And each opportunity depended on other people's errors more than on one's own power. The SF-25, although more stable in the dry, still did not generate the total confidence that the British need to attack without hesitation. Throughout the first stint, he was stuck behind Alex Albon, a direct rival with a Mercedes engine who knew how to defend himself with intelligence and superior traction on the straights. The most frustrating thing was the lack of strategic tools available. Ferrari was trapped. If they extended the first stint too much, they ran the risk of running out of tires just as their rivals undercut. If they stopped early, they would get into traffic. They opted for a conservative, risk-free stop, and that decision sealed Hamilton's fate. No clear traffic on the way out, no dominant race pace, no opportunities to execute an overcut. The rest of the race was a fight against mathematics, against the stopwatch, against the limits of the car. Hamilton managed to reach 10th position, an improvement of 10 places from the start, yes, but in practice it only meant a single point in the championship. It was a statistical comeback, not a sporting one. There were no heroic maneuvers, no memorable battles. It was an inglorious comeback. On the radio, Hamilton's tone of voice at the end was eloquent. Neither euphoria nor frustration. Just resignation. He knew he had done everything he could. But I also knew that it wasn't enough. When he got out of the car, the image was devastating. Helmet on, looking at the ground, walking straight to the box. No celebration for the point achieved. For Ferrari, Sunday was even harder to digest. Because unlike an abandonment or a clear error, what they experienced was a clinical demonstration of the structural limitations of the car and the team. The SF-25 does not have a wide operating window, does not allow aggressive strategies, does not respond well outside of ideal conditions. It is a situational performance car. And that, in a championship where the margins are minimal, is a sentence. The internal post-race analysis was brutal. 4 key areas of improvement were identified: tire activation in cold conditions, communication between driver and engineer, management of extreme situations in qualifying, and tactical versatility. But perhaps the hardest learning was another. The Hamilton-Ferrari project, for now, is nowhere near ready to fight for consistent victories. And yet, that same race offered a valuable nuance. In difficult conditions with the car at the limit, Hamilton did not give up. Fought. He squeezed. Sumo. He saved what he could. And that is what differentiates the greats from the rest. Ferrari left Las Vegas without epic, but with an invaluable lesson. The comeback that everyone expected did not happen. But the lesson they needed to receive came with the forcefulness of a poorly taken curve. The 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix was not the consecration that many imagined for Lewis Hamilton in his new stage with Ferrari. It was not the story of the veteran who defies age and once again dominates the world. It was instead a silent lesson. A sign that even the greatest in the best teams can be dragged into the mud by execution errors, unpredictable conditions, and machinery that still does not live up to the myth that its driver represents. Ferrari did not emerge humiliated, but neither did it emerge vindicated. She got hit. She came out confused. He left with a heavier backpack than he brought, because now there are no theoretical excuses. They had a car that promised, an opportunity that seemed real, and they let it slip away. And although some media try to dress the result as a comeback, the truth is that it was a minimization of damage. A single point. A decorative position. A story without a climax. For Hamilton, what happened in Las Vegas marks a critical point in his adaptation curve. Until now, it had been a matter of knowing the car, understanding the team, reading the new culture. But in Nevada, the British driver collided with Ferrari's operational reality. Imprecise decisions, strategic failures, communication errors. It is no longer just a technical issue. It is a structural issue. And he knows it. And this is where reflection becomes essential. Is this just a bad weekend or a deeper warning? Does Ferrari have the real ability to build a championship project around Hamilton? Or is it Hamilton who will have to reinvent himself once again, not only as a driver, but as a transformative leader within a structure that still carries inertia from the past? There is something powerful about what didn't happen in Las Vegas. There was no victory, there was no podium, there was no redemption. But there was truth. And in Formula One, the truth hurts, but it also liberates. State what needs to change, shows what is being done wrong, and forces you to make difficult decisions. Ferrari and Hamilton's journey is just beginning, but it is already clear that it will not be easy. Promises don't win championships. Symbolic comebacks do not give titles. And history is not written with intentions. It is written with results. And now the question is for you. Do you think Ferrari and Hamilton will manage to correct course before it's too late? Or are we seeing the beginning of a story of frustrations disguised as potential? Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.